Evening and welcome. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan Evening of Education. Tonight's presentation will be on navigating home safety with dementia, featuring our guest presenters, Erin Solsis and Margaret Dodson. My name is Heather Dash, and I'm the program manager for the Programs and Services team for the Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan. As we gather here today, I acknowledge that I'm joining you from Regina, which is Treaty 4 territory and the homeland of the Métis. The people of Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan are privileged to live and work across the traditional land we know as Saskatchewan. We recognize the legacy and the enduring presence of the Cree, Dakota, Dene, Nakota, Lakota, Sawi, and Métis people, who are the original stewards of the rolling hills, rushing rivers, and living sky we all share today. As an organization, we acknowledge the harms of the past and how Indigenous people are still impacted by the process colonialism. Through education, partnership, and collective action, we are committed to honoring our relationship with the land, our treaties, and each other as we journey towards reconciliation. Before we begin, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping items. First off, I would like to thank our supporting sponsors, SaskTel Telcare and SGI. The presentation tonight will be recorded. Please know that only the presenters are being shown on the screen. As participants, your faces, names will not be shown, and you will all be muted. If any attendees would like closed captionings, we have enabled automatic captions, which you can select at the bottom of your screen. Following tonight, an email will be sent to you with a short evaluation and links to educational resources. During the presentation, you can type your questions for the presenters in the Q&A function near the bottom of the screen, not the chat box. We'll have a brief question period at the end of the presentation where I will read the questions that have been typed in to the presenters. We ask that you keep your questions relevant to the topic being presented tonight and general questions only, not personal. The presenters will not be giving personal advice and will not comment on personal situations. I would like to introduce our guest presenters this evening. Erin Solsis is an occupational therapist with experience in acute care, community services, and geriatric assessment. Erin has had the privilege of working with patients of all ages, developing meaningful connections with patients, their families, while working towards goals of functional independence. When she is not working, Erin usually is found on the soccer field or hockey rink with her two busy kids or out walking her dog. Originally from Ireland, Margaret Dodson completed her occupational studies at the University of Alberta and has since built a career spanning over 2 decades. Margaret's career includes time at Partridge Center in geriatric rehab and long-term care, 10 years in adult rehab at City Hospital, and for the last 12 years has been dedicated part of the geriatric program. Outside of work, Margaret is known for her love of cats, a good book, dancing, laughter, and her fondness for the color orange. Erin and Margaret, I will now stop sharing my screen so you can start your presentation.
Thank you very much. Let me just get our slides going here. Okay, can everyone see the slides? Heather, can you just confirm for me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is Erin, and to my side, I have Margaret. I'm just going to shift over. I'm going to do the first part of the presentation here, and then Margaret will pick up after that. So thank you for doing that land acknowledgement. That was beautiful. I just wanted to add that Margaret and I are joining you from Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis. And I wanted to share a photo that I took out at Cranberry Flats on a recent walk. The leaves are changing and I just felt really lucky to raise my family in this part of the province and to live and work on these lands. Occupational therapists are healthcare professionals who help with those everyday activities of daily living. So, our goal is always to make people as independent as possible, especially in their own homes. So, an occupational therapist can provide recommendations to people living with dementia and also to their family members and their caregivers to maximize independence in all of those daily tasks that we need to do throughout our days, from getting up out of bed in the morning to brushing your teeth, getting dressed, driving the car, getting the groceries you need to plan out a meal to share with your family. Sometimes we do that by suggesting modifications to tasks, adapting daily routines based on changes that might be happening with cognitive abilities, and providing strategies for managing those specific cognitive changes or behavioral symptoms that might be impacting that day to day function. We can also help you identify meaningful activities that can promote function and quality of life and maintain that function for as long as possible. Another role that OTs play is providing caregiver education on the cognitive changes that are happening, safety concerns that should be considered, strategies for communicating with loved ones, equipment that's available that might be of help at home, and body mechanics for caregivers that are providing hands on care at home. So, what we're going to discuss today is modifying the home environment to ensure safety at home. So, we're going to go through the house room by room and give you some suggestions that might work in your situation. So, we'll start off in the bathroom. The bathroom is a common place for safety risks. It's a place that we access several times a day, every day. And there is a lot of equipment available to make those daily personal care tasks as easy and safe as possible. There are a lot of options out there, so sometimes it can be a good idea to consult with an occupational therapist to find the best choice for your space. Not every piece of equipment will work well for everyone and in every space. It's important to note as well that some items of equipment that we'll talk about tonight are covered by your provincial health and others are not. Others are something that you might have to purchase and perhaps submit to some private insurance if you have that available. Important to note as well that items that are covered by the Special Needs Equipment Program at Sask Abilities, which many of you might be familiar with, and by non insured health benefits require a requisition from a therapist. So don't have the expectation that you can go to one of those funders and just grab a piece of equipment that you see here tonight. Make sure that you're making those connections with therapists for those requisitions. We'll start off with toileting. There are a lot of options out there to make it easier to get on and off the toilet. So, we're going to go over a few of these and some considerations for whether or not those pieces of equipment will work well for you or your loved one. We'll talk about raised toilet seats, commodes, toilet armrests, and grab bars. It's important to remember too that sometimes low tech options that you can grab from your everyday store or from the pharmacy might be a help as well. For example, using a night light for nighttime toileting or a urinal so that you don't have to get up out of the bed to go to the bathroom at night. Raised toilet seats. These come in a variety of heights. Something to consider is making sure you're not getting something too tall. You want your loved one or yourself to still be able to place their feet on the floor for stability so that you're not teetering on the edge of the toilet. And so also you can assume an effective position for having a bowel movement, for example. Raised toilet seats, as pictured here on this slide, are available with and without armrests. Consider, though, that armrests can help with standing up and maintaining that upright posture when toileting might take a little while, but they can also get in the way when you're trying to do the wiping after the task. Raised toilet seats are available in clamp on, which has the ability for that clamp to loosen over time and become unstable, and the seat itself can fall right off, and bolt on. These bolt on where the toilet seat attaches, and that's a safer option that we tend to recommend more often than not. Important to consider too that if you are purchasing a spacer style raised toilet seat, like the one on the left hand picture, Most of the time, these are quite thin and are just meant as a spacer, and you do need to install your own toilet seat back on top so that it's a nice, comfortable spot to sit. Moving on to commodes. Commodes can be used over top of the toilet to give you that height adjustability and some armrests to use for support, but they can also be moved to other locations in the home, perhaps using them at the bedside when someone gets up quite often to use the bathroom at nighttime, or when someone's maybe not feeling well and they can't get to the bathroom in time. Some commodes have wheels. Important to make sure that those wheel locks are working well and are being used consistently, and that you're using all four locks all the time so that that commode isn't going to suddenly move when someone is sitting or standing. Something to consider when debating between a commode and a raised toilet seat is that the legs of the commode can become a tripping hazard. So if you have someone who maybe shuffles when they walk, or they're not the most careful when they're turning around to sit down and might tend to catch their feet on things, consider that those commode legs can actually be a bit of a hazard. Commodes can also be a bit unstable because they are a freestanding device. They're not attached to anything. So you want to be mindful if they're being used for stability during another transfer. So for example, if the toilet and the tub shower are right next to each other and your loved one is reaching for the armrest of that commode as they step into the tub, when there isn't weight on that commode, it can be unstable and it can tip if someone's using it for support that way. Toilet armrests. These are usually bolted on where the toilet seat attaches, but there are some freestanding options as well. These assist with standing up or with sitting down slowly and with control, which might help for those people who plunk down on the toilet really quickly. And if they don't plan things out quite right, that can cause a fall. They can also help with maintaining that upright posture if toileting takes some time, or if a person tends to get fatigued and slowly kind of slump over to the side as they're sitting. Toilet armrests are available in three styles. The first that you see here on the top left has the legs that extend all the way to the floor. A pro of this style is that they do tend to be a bit wider set, so there is a little bit more space between them. But a con is that they can wobble a bit when they're used. They're not quite as stable as the other options. The next image is of legs to bowl, which is a more stable option but tends to be a bit narrower. And the last option on the bottom left is a freestanding option. This can be taken from one bathroom to another, put away when not in use, maybe taken to a loved one's home or kept in the closet for when someone comes to visit. But they're not securely fastened to the toilet, so it is suggested that you might want to provide some supervision when using this style. And the fourth picture there is just another example of the legs to bowl, the ones that are bolted on and fastened at the side of the bowl. Grab bars next to the toilet can be a good solution as well. You want to make sure, though, that grab bars are always installed correctly into the studs, perhaps hiring someone who has experience with installing grab bars. Bars can be placed horizontally, vertically, or at an angle, depending on how you prefer to grip that support. So consider, if you're putting up these bars for a loved one, do they like to push up, pull up, or both? You might have the individual sit down on the toilet so you can check out where their arm naturally reaches to figure out what height or how far forward to put that bar. You can potentially use some painter's tape to mark the location and then think about it for a few days before you commit to putting that bar in. Grab bars come with a variety of sizes, shapes, lengths. You can get them at your everyday hardware store and also from medical supply stores. Make sure that you find a grab bar that has a nice grip surface to it. Some of the fancier grab bars that are meant to look a little bit more chic and a little bit less like medical equipment sometimes have a bit more of a slippery surface to them. I have seen a lot of suction grab bars out on home visits, and I've checked a lot of them just to make sure they're tight and they've come right off. So sometimes these bars stay up really well for a long time, but more often than not, in my experience, they do come down really easily, so they're not something that I would recommend. Something to check if you're looking at the bathroom of a loved one is whether or not the towel bar is loose on the wall. It's very common for people to steady themselves on a towel bar without even really realizing that they're doing it. So check if the bar is loose, which is a sure sign that it's being pulled on. And if you suspect or you observe that someone is using a towel bar as a grab bar, consider replacing that towel bar with a grab bar, and you can still continue to use it to hang your towels. But then you know that the bar itself is strong enough to not bend or break when force is applied. And you know that it's installed correctly into the studs and it's not going to come down. We'll shift now to bathing. There are many different styles of tub seats, grab bars, handles for bathing out there. And all of the use of some of these devices can make bathing as easy and safe as possible. So we're going to go through a few options here. A good quality non-slip bath mat can really reduce the risk of slipping in the tub, but it's important to make sure that you're checking that bath mat regularly to make sure that it's in good condition. Sometimes the rubber dries out, the suction cups might crack or not really work as well as they once did, and that's a good sign that the mat might need to be replaced. It's sometimes worth the investment to get a mat from a medical supply store where the rubber is maybe a bit better quality, there are more suction cups on the back, and it's not going to move around on you. And it's important to remove the bath mat sometimes to allow it to dry at the back and to remove any soap scum buildup that might prevent it from sticking down. Also pictured on this slide is a handheld shower attachment, which can make it a lot easier to shower in a seated position and is also a nice option to have when you are a caregiver who's providing assistance with a shower. Some handheld showers have an on and off switch right on the handle, which can make it easier to use when you're in a seated position and it's a little bit too far to reach forward to adjust the water temperature or the pressure once you're sitting down. Something to consider before you purchase a handheld shower is measuring the length of the hose that you require before you make a purchase so that it will reach all the way from where it comes out of the wall to where you'll be seated on the seat. There are a lot of different styles of shower seats out there. Some have a backrest, some don't. And all of these shower seats can be used in either a tub or a walk-in shower. The idea with a shower seat is that all 4 feet will sit inside of the tub. If you're purchasing one of these for someone, you want to make sure that you measure the flat portion of the base of the tub so that the feet of the shower seat are not sitting on the curved edges of that inside surface of the tub so that the seat is nice and stable. Shower seats are height adjustable, so make sure that you adjust the height of that seat to what works well for standing up, but still allows your feet to touch the bottom of the tub for that stability when you're sitting. Bath boards, which are pictured at the bottom of this slide, are a legless option, so a shower seat without the feet. They clamp onto the inside edges of the tub, but you have to have a large ledge on the inside of the tub for it to sit on safely, and you have to have fairly straight tub walls for the clamps to work correctly. So if you have a very slopey tub or you have a very thin ledge on the inner surface of your tub, this might not work well for you. Always best to ask an equipment vendor or an occupational therapist if that option will work well for you. With this type of medical equipment, shower seats, toilet seats, most of the things that we'll talk about tonight, if you're doing a purchase from a medical equipment vendor, it's important to remember that most of these items are non-refundable. So even if you have the best intentions and you're going to the store and clearing them out of medical equipment so that you can get things set up for your loved one, if you get them home and realize that maybe that bath board doesn't clamp on tightly enough or the shower seat is too wide for the base of the tub, chances are you'll be stuck with that piece of equipment. A transfer tub bench is another option. This eliminates the need to step over the edge of the tub. So you can see in the picture here, 2 feet of the tub bench are in the tub and 2 feet are out. So this allows you to sit on the edge of the seat first, then gradually slide yourself back and over, lifting one leg at a time into the tub. The backrest can be changed to face the other way depending on where your taps are located. Important to tuck in the shower curtain under the hip and down into the tub in front of and behind the seat to ensure that water doesn't leak on the floor. Always a good idea to still double check and make sure that the floor is dry before you exit the tub. A note on grab bars for the tub now. Grab bars can be installed either to enter and exit the tub or on the inner wall of the tub to assist with maybe standing while you're showering, standing up from a tub seat to wash your backside, or getting up from the bottom of the tub if you get all the way down to have a bath. Again, can't reinforce this enough. You want to make sure that grab bars are installed into studs. If you have a fiberglass tub surround, which is very common in a lot of homes, you want to make sure that the person installing your bar has the correct equipment to prevent that surround from cracking when they're installing. The built-in grab bars in a tub or shower surround are not meant to be used as a grab bar. You might have a very short little white or clear plastic handle inside your tub shower or your walk-in shower. These are intended as a place to hang your cloth or your sponge. They're not meant to take any weight. And so if you are finding that you're using that for support, you want to switch to a grab bar instead. In the bottom picture, we have a tub clamp bar, which can be a good option for stepping in and out of the tub, as well as to reach for when getting up from the toilet as well. Just be aware that these bars, because they clamp on, don't tend to stay in place really well if the tub doesn't have perfectly straight sides. So if you have a lot of contours to the edge of your tub, or if the inner wall of the tub is sloped or curved, these might not be a good option for you. Now I'll touch on getting in and out of the house and up and down from one level to the next. You might consider adding additional railings on both indoor and outdoor steps. Ensure that your railings are in good repair, they're not coming loose, they're easy to grab a hold of, they have a nice, easy surface to grab onto. It might be helpful to have at least the railing on one side or the other extend past the final step so that you can still hang on to something as you're coming down that last step. Ensure that stairwells are well lit and have an even tread with a good grip. Consider the contrast too. Is it easy for that person to tell where each step begins and ends? Make sure that outdoor steps have some texture for grip in the winter and that the steps are being cleared of ice and snow. Also ensure belongings are not kept on the stairs. This has certainly caused a fall for myself in my house, having kids' toys and dog toys on the steps. So make sure that that surface is being kept clear. Another suggestion might be to move the mailbox if you tend to just put one foot out the door and lean over to the side to reach for the mail each day. Perhaps you want to move it a little bit closer so that you're not teetering at the top of those stairs. We're just including one note on security here, but if you do have some additional home entry security concerns, you could look back at a previous webinar on wandering that might have a bit more information for you. If wandering is a concern at home, you can consider a door alarm, which is pictured here. Simple door alarm systems that just chime when the door opens and closes are available at hardware stores. These are pretty easy to find these days. As soon as the two pieces of the door alarm come apart, a little alarm goes off, which you can keep plugged in the area of the house where you'll hear it the best. Other alarm systems will have a laser so that when the beam is crossed, an alarm will sound. So similar setup, but instead of having the two pieces on the door, there is a threshold. When it is crossed, it will alert the alarm. This option might work well if you as a caregiver require a bit more time to get to the door when your loved one is approaching it, rather than once they've already gotten to the door and opened it. There are some more sophisticated options out there that maybe can be monitored from a smartphone or monitored remotely. If you're interested in something like that, it might be a good idea to contact your local home security companies for more information. Emergency response systems are a good option for home safety. These can be an effective way to call for help when someone has a medical emergency or a fall. However, it is important to introduce devices like this when the individual is still capable of learning to use them and remembering to wear them. These can also be a helpful thing for a caregiver to have. Perhaps if your loved one has a cognitive impairment, but you yourself have a physical impairment that prevents you from providing physical assistance when someone has had a fall, or it's difficult for you to get up and over to someone if you have an emergency happening, perhaps you want to consider that for yourself as well so that you can call for help really quickly and easily. These systems are often worn on a necklace or a wrist button. They connect to a base unit that connects you or your loved one with a representative who can determine if you need to contact an ambulance or an emergency contact. A device like that connects to the base unit and puts you through to an operator does tend to have a monthly fee. There are some devices out there that don't require a monthly service fee and are connected directly to your emergency contacts. Those are devices that you can buy privately online that aren't connected to a company, such as Lifeline, for example. There are some devices out there that have additional features that might be useful, such as GPS tracking if you're concerned about being able to tell where your loved one has gone, or fall detection. Perhaps you have someone who is a very high risk for falling, but they're not going to remember consistently how to use that button. Some of those devices will detect that a fall has occurred and then alert your emergency contact. We'll move now into the kitchen. Stove safety can become a big concern when memory is changing, but there are a lot of strategies that you can use depending on the level of those cognitive changes. So, our first suggestion here is to use a timer as a reminder to return to the stove. This is something that I myself do at home. If I want to make sure that I come back to the oven when something is done baking, I'll always use that audio reminder to come back to the stove. You might suggest that an individual remains at the stove until it has been turned off. Perhaps set up a stool next to the stove so that that individual can comfortably wait for their item to finish cooking. Use lower heat if you're concerned about memory with turning off a burner or with watching something closely. You can sometimes just provide some supervision during meal prep. Sit at a table nearby and give that person that reminder to give something a stir or check something in the oven or turn off the burner. Pictured on this slide, we have some automatic stove shutoff devices. These are something that you can look up online and perhaps purchase at a local hardware store or from a website. These will turn off the stove at a designated amount of time. So perhaps you set it to turn off at 10 minutes unless the button is pressed on the device to extend the time. If none of these strategies are effective, or if perhaps your loved one lives alone and you're just not sure that anything else will quite work well enough, you can also unplug the stove, try using another option instead, perhaps something like using the microwave instead of using the stove. Some other suggestions for safety in the kitchen. Reaching into high or low cupboards or the back of a fridge or freezer can cause a fall or injury. Consider if you had to get something from the very back of the fridge and you're using a walker, so you have to cast your walker aside so that you can reach all the way into that fridge, and then you're in a very compromised position bending down that low to grab something. So you want to place the items that you use most commonly within easy reach, perhaps moving them to a different shelf so that you can reach them more easily, bringing things in the fridge closer to the front and maybe tossing items that never get used. Even something like moving your microwave from up high or down low to counter height could really impact fall risk in the kitchen. Place heavier items at a working height. So, for example, if you tend to put away your small appliances after each use, like putting away your toaster every time you use it, for example, consider leaving it out on the counter if it's something that you use every day. You can also replace heavier items with a lighter, more ergonomic option. For example, if you tend to use a very heavy Dutch oven pot, try using a smaller, lightweight pot instead. Or instead of buying a 4-liter jug of milk, consider buying a 2-liter so that you're not lifting up as much weight, potentially throwing off your balance or tiring you out as you're doing your kitchen tasks. You can also try sitting at the counter or at a table while you're completing some tasks, perhaps while you're peeling and dicing vegetables, like in the picture here on this slide. That's a good energy conservation strategy so that you're in a nice, safe, stable position while you're doing that task for an extended period of time. The person in the picture here is sitting on what's called a perching stool, which is a height adjustable stool with a backrest and armrests that you can purchase from a medical supply store to use in the kitchen. You can also consider the use of adapted utensils to make tasks easier and safer in the kitchen. For example, on this slide, there is an example of a fork with a larger grip handle. You can ask an OT for more ideas for these types of utensils. Moving into the bedroom. If you or a loved one are having difficulty with getting in and out of bed, you can consider something like a bed rail, which is in the top photo on this slide. These railings install between the mattress and the box spring. There is a curved rubber handle that can be used for support when you're sitting up, lying down, or repositioning. I find these are very helpful for individuals who sit on the side of the bed to get dressed in the morning. Something to consider when you're sitting on the side of the bed often to get dressed is that the side of the mattress will sometimes give way over time and become a little bit of a ski slope that can accelerate your path to the floor. So make sure that if that is a concern, you're either replacing the mattress or flipping it, rotating it, or using a railing like this to hang on to for a bit of extra support. Be sure to install bed rails correctly according to the manufacturer's instructions, as a loose or poorly installed bed rail can be a safety risk. An OT can assist you with determining if something like a bedside pole is a good option, as there are some safety risks to consider and measurements that need to be taken to make sure that the pole is being used and installed correctly. If you already have a pole in place, make sure that you're checking it on a regular basis to make sure that it's staying tight and level. These poles can come down if they're not tightened on a regular basis or if they're not installed correctly. If someone that you know maybe had a pole in their home, they no longer need it and they're giving it to you to use, it's wise to have an occupational therapist confirm that it's safe to use with your ceiling and is the correct height. Perhaps someone with 8-foot ceilings in their home is giving it to you and you have 9-foot ceilings. It can be a safety risk to extend the pole that far. Something else to consider with bed height is whether a lower box spring can help. Mattresses these days are getting taller and taller. So it's sometimes an option if you've purchased a new mattress and you're finding it just impossible to get in and out of the bed, to look at something like a half height box spring or adjusting the legs of your bed frame to make the bed to floor height a little bit smaller. And as I had touched on before, if the mattress is getting caved in on the edge, you might consider a replacement. Moving into the living room, consider surface heights here too. Is it difficult to stand up from your low, soft couch or a very deep chair? Sometimes furniture risers, such as the ones in the top right picture or the bottom right picture, can increase the height of your favorite chair or your favorite couch without changing the way that that couch looks or feels. An OT might also be able to recommend other devices such as a couch cane, which is pictured on the top left, or even a pole that we had discussed before. A lift recliner, which is pictured here on the bottom left, might be a good option to help your loved one stand up, but please make sure that you take that individual with you when you're selecting a chair. If you end up purchasing something that's too deep or too wide or uncomfortable, it might actually make it more difficult for that person to get in and out of the chair rather than making it easier for them. Now we'll touch a bit on clutter, which can be present anywhere in the home. An individual with dementia may struggle to navigate a cluttered or disorganized environment. It's important to simplify the environment to assist the individual with finding what they're looking for to do their daily tasks. If an individual sees the tools that they need for the task that you've sent them in there to do, it might cue them as to what it was that they were supposed to do. So, for example, in the images to the right, the top image has quite a few belongings on the bathroom counter. And you can see how much easier it is for someone to determine what morning care tasks they need to do in the picture at the bottom, where only what is needed is on the counter. In the rest of the home, clutter can cause an increased fall risk, especially if it's on the floor. You want to watch out for cords, loose throw rugs, items left on the stairs, piles of belongings on the floor, bulky furniture that makes it difficult to use a walker or cane, and cluttered work surfaces that might cause someone to work unsafely. For example, someone having to struggle to carry a heavy pot to the sink to drain it rather than being able to slide it across a clear countertop. Some strategies for managing clutter. You want to remove throw rugs, and if you're really attached to them, which a lot of people are, make sure that you're securing the edges with double-sided tape on the underside or a nice wide tape on all of the top edges to prevent them from curling up or catching on someone's toe as they walk. It's important to select rugs that are nice and thin so that there isn't a large transition from the floor to the top of the rug. Simplify your tools and utensils. Searching through a really full drawer or cupboard can be overwhelming and can distract someone from what it was that they went in there for. Perhaps put away some of the items that you use really rarely into storage and leave out only what you use on a regular basis. You can also consider grouping things together. Perhaps if you keep the pot, spoon, dry oats, and measuring cup that you use for your morning oatmeal each day in the same drawer, it'll be easier for someone to complete that task rather than having to navigate several different cupboards and drawers to find what they're looking for. Consider reducing the furniture in your space to allow clear pathways for walking with or without a walking aid like a walker or wheelchair. What I saw a lot in my time in home visits was very large scale furniture that may be moved with someone from their larger home into a smaller condo. Perhaps downsizing some of that furniture or getting rid of some items will make things safer in your environment. And also keep work surfaces nice and clear to make tasks more efficient and to rid the space of distractions as well. I'll pass it over to Margaret.
Thank you, Erin. Hi there, it's Margaret. I'm going to continue with the presentation. So next we're going to talk about visual perception. So visual perception is the way a person perceives or makes sense of their environment. It's not the same as visual acuity, which is how clearly we see. An individual with dementia may have changes in visual perception. Now let's take a look at the picture on the right. And imagine that on entering this room, you think there's a big black hole on the floor. That would be pretty scary and unsettling. Or perhaps you need to go to the bathroom, and on entering the room, you're unable to differentiate between the white toilet and the white garbage can, which would be confusing, distressing, and also may result in an unintentional accident. On the stairs, these changes can make it harder to differentiate where a stair begins and where to step, which can cause anxiety and contribute to a fall. So you can see how it may become difficult for a person to navigate in a previously familiar environment. And in some instances, can cause a person to become lost in their own home. Changes in visual perception may have surprising effects. For example, just as an individual may have difficulty navigating in their familiar environment, they may have difficulty identifying food on a plate when there is not enough contrast. An individual may stop eating full meals because they have difficulty actually seeing the food that blends in with the color of their plate, such as is seen in the picture on the right. But using a blue plate will provide more contrast, and then the person can identify all of the foods and is therefore more likely to eat a full meal. So what can we do to help? Well, bright, even lighting in the home, night lights, using blinds to reduce glare on surfaces, making sure that surfaces have contrast, but not too much. And some examples would be to use a strip of colored tape on the edge of the stairs to make sure that the stair railing is painted a different color than the wall, and creating a contrast between the toilet and the floor. Also, as seen in the picture there, adding a label to the bathroom door or adding labels to doors or cupboards can also help. Or another example would be labeling a cupboard where the morning coffee supplies are kept to make this task easier. Now, in regards to promoting safety at night, you can see in the picture a bed alarm. It's called the smart bed alarm. This is a handy gadget that can reduce some of the worry about a loved one getting up out of bed when the caregiver is asleep or not in the room. The bed alarm, the monitor with the alarm can be heard by the caregiver when they're if they are in another room, or as I mentioned, if they're asleep. It can help prevent a fall if an individual with dementia is forgetting to use their walker, and then when they get up, and then the caregiver will be able to get up and assist them. And our next slide has some sleep hygiene suggestions to increase safety at night. So an individual with dementia may at times struggle to tell if it's day or night. Listed here are some tips to help promote clarity between day and night. So limiting napping during the day, having a structured routine by going to bed at the same time each night and getting up at the same time each morning, setting an alarm if needed so that you can do this, and also eating meals at regular times during the day. They can all just help provide that good routine and structure. Another thing that can be helpful is to have your loved one engage in activities that are meaningful to the individual. You can consider grading the activity if your loved one is no longer able to safely complete the whole task. So, for example, folding laundry when seated is an activity a person can do if they're no longer able to do all of the parts of the laundry task. So sometimes doing even part of an activity can help a person feel that they are contributing. And then, of course, getting some physical activity is really important, as can help de-stress and promote relaxation, which aids sleep. And a dementia clock may also help with day-night confusion. The clock will indicate AM or PM, and many clocks also display an image such as a crescent moon, which indicates whether it's day or night. And also limiting caffeine intake after lunch is helpful as well. So now we're going to speak a little bit about medication storage and routines. So we'll talk about some options for medication storage and some routines that may help with remembering to take medications. So it's important to store medications for different family members in different locations, because this can help prevent an individual from accidentally taking the wrong medications. Using a visual reminder by placing your medications where you will see them daily can help also, such as on the dining table. But obviously, caution, just a mention that this is not recommended if young children or grandchildren come to visit. And also taking medications with meals, such as taking noon meals with lunch, that can also help cue and provide a reminder. And remember that if an individual wears glasses to read, it is important to wear them when taking medications. And sometimes having an inexpensive pair of reader glasses in the same locations as the medications may not be a bad idea. To the right in the picture are some examples of pill boxes, or otherwise known as dosettes, which can help make it easier to manage medications. They can be filled by an individual or by a family member if the individual with dementia is having difficulties. Bubble packing medication simplifies the task even further, pictured on the right. Releasing the pills from the bubble into a brightly colored plastic bowl can help prevent accidental spillage of the pills when they are punched out. Something just to be aware of is that it can sometimes be difficult for persons with limited strength and dexterity in hands and fingers to get pills out of the bubble because you have to use a bit of pressure as you punch them through. And also some bubble packs can be hard to follow, but family could consider adding arrows or additional labels on the bubble pack to help make them easier to follow. And if it is becoming challenging to manage your medications, or there's a concern that errors may be occurring, ask family or home care for help. And in the lower right in the picture are some examples of automatic medication dispensers which are available. In Saskatoon, an example is something called Spencer the Dispenser, which is available from Willow Grove Pharmacy. There are also dispensers that you can purchase online and fill yourself. And now I'm just going to touch on some additional general fall prevention tips. So we mentioned that that exercise helps with sleep. Obviously, regular exercise also is very helpful to maintain strength and balance, and in that way can help prevent a fall. Exercise is also important for brain health. And it's important to wear your glasses and or your hearing aids daily if they are recommended. And it's wearing supportive shoes or supportive slippers or socks with grip will make it safer when mobilizing within your home. And if a person with dementia is using a walker within the home to mobilize, it is recommended that the door to the basement is closed to prevent an accidental fall. And some day-to-day memory tips. Now you can see pictured on the top right there is a little written reminder posted on the bathroom mirror to remember to take off your hearing aids. So written reminders can be very helpful to provide cues, and posting them in a place where they're going to be easily seen daily is helpful. And picture reminders of each step involved in putting in or taking out your hearing aids can be helpful also. Another tip is, something that is easy to do and can be helpful is to use a short written to-do list for the day. Crossing off each item as it's completed can give a feeling of accomplishment, and it can sometimes alleviate anxiety because when you have your list written out, then you're not worried about forgetting to do something. And then, of course, routine and structure are very helpful as they enable one to function as well as possible. When something is part of our routine, it is easier to remember. And repetition can be really helpful if it's consistent. So, for example, if family members are taking turns at helping a loved one with a task such as bathing, um, it's important to give consistent instructions because that can help facilitate learning and it can avoid confusion. And using a calendar daily and checking it daily can help with orientation. Have your calendar readily available so that you can write down or check your appointments. And the addition of a dementia clock can be very helpful also with orientation, as pictured on the bottom right. And then during conversation with loved ones, it can be helpful to provide just small pieces of information at a time and allow extra time for comprehension and for loved ones to reply. So when should one reach out to an occupational therapist or an OT for a home assessment? So if you or your loved ones are having difficulty with accessibility within your home, difficulty getting in and out of your home, or falling or at risk of falling, you may benefit from seeing an OT. So some examples are listed down below. So difficulty, for example, with getting in and out of the tub or the shower, getting on and off the toilet, in and out of bed, difficulty getting up from your couch, up or down from your couch, going up and down the stairs to your bedroom or bathroom is becoming challenging and you're afraid of falling, or if getting in and out of your home is becoming difficult and you're afraid of falling as well. The occupational therapist can do a home visit and provide recommendations, the goal of which is to maximize independence and accessibility, as well as quality of life. Fall prevention is a big focus of the home visit also. Referrals to occupational therapy will vary depending on where you live. In many places in Saskatchewan, you can contact Client Patient Access Services, or CPAS, they're the community coordinators, or your local home care office to ask about a referral to community OT or occupational therapy. In smaller centres, you may be able to contact the therapy office directly for more information. You can also talk with your primary care provider, so your physician or your nurse practitioner, to ask for guidance. There is a shortage of occupational therapists in most parts of Saskatchewan. So be sure to ask for a referral before your needs become urgent, as there is often a wait list for service. Now we're going to touch on some strategies for talking to a person with dementia about safety concerns in the home. And Heather had mentioned or is also going to provide some information on how to, on referring to a previous Alzheimer's Society recorded education session, which was on communication in dementia, which was given by a speech language pathologist and has some excellent communication strategies. So some strategies that can help are using a calm tone of voice and choosing a time of day when both the loved one with dementia and the caregiver are not rushed, and the loved one is not tired, hungry, or in pain. Also, If the individual gets upset when you're talking about safety concerns in the home, try again later or try another day. Recognize that it may take a few shorter conversations to build up some insight and understanding, and that's okay. Explain that the goal of safety strategies is to maximize their independence while keeping them safe. You can mention that these strategies are made to keep the caregiver safe also. For example, using grab bars and a seat in the shower can keep your loved one and caregiver safe, because if the person with dementia falls, their caregiver can fall and injure themselves also. And caregiver burnout can also be discussed, as this is a factor that can often lead to needing increased level of care. Staying safe in the home can ensure your loved one can remain in their home as long as possible. So, in summary, it can take time, ongoing conversations, and a lot of patience to make changes to the home environment to make it safe. Once changes or new pieces of equipment are in place, some supervision is recommended while the person with dementia adjusts or gets used to using this equipment. An occupational therapist can help make the best recommendations for your home and for your specific needs. Sometimes advice from a professional is better received than advice from a loved one. And remember that these recommendations are just ideas and they may not work in your home. So do not hesitate to find an OT and request a home assessment. Getting good advice early on can save you time, money, and frustration. Thank you all very much. We hope these recommendations have been helpful to keep you and your loved ones safe at home.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I will just stop sharing the slides here. There we go. Thanks everyone for your attention.
Well, thank you, Erin and Mark. Oh, am I? Is there a? I'm going to try that again. Okay, this is good. I noticed there was a bit of feedback there. Erin and Margaret, thank you so much. That was so much valuable information, such a great resource that you guys put together. While I'm waiting for everybody to put their questions in the question and answer box, I will go over, some information about the Alzheimer's Society. So we'll soon be answering questions that have been typed in the question and answer box. If you haven't typed in your question yet, we encourage you to enter them now. Just a reminder that questions must be relevant to the topic presented tonight, and the presenters will not be giving personal advice and will not comment on personal situations. While you're entering the questions, I will share a few slides on the Alzheimer's Society. The Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan is the province's leading dementia care and research charity. The vision of the Alzheimer's Society is to live in a world without Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. The mission is to empower people to live well with dementia through the delivery of programs, services, advocacy, awareness, and research. We are accredited by Imagine Canada Standards Program for excellence in nonprofit accountability, transparency, and governance. The Standards Program is a Canada-wide set of shared standards for charities and nonprofits. Did you know that 3 out of every $4 the Alzheimer's Society receives comes from donations? Donations come in for events such as tonight's evening of education, as sponsorships, gifts left in wills, monthly donations, or general donations to the Society. A couple things to note. A person does not need a formal diagnosis to be connected with us. And we support those affected by Alzheimer's disease and other dementias and have resources and knowledge about many types of dementia. What can clients expect from the Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan? Individualized information and support. This is available for both people living with dementia and their care partners. Learning opportunities. This includes learning series. These are courses to help people with dementia, their families and friends to live as well as possible with the disease. The courses offered build upon each other, covering the continuum of the disease. Evenings of education, like tonight's event, are a standalone topic presented by content experts. Connection. This includes our support groups. The Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan support groups offer a chance to exchange information with others living with dementia or affected. Access the most current information, learn and share practical tips for coping with change, decrease feelings of isolation and loneliness, express feelings and be reassured that these feelings are normal and find a sense of hope. Minds in Motion, a 2-hour program that is held weekly that combines physical activity and social activity for those in early stage dementia and a friend, family member, or caregiver. Connection to other organizations. This includes providing information on available services provided by the Saskatchewan Health Authority, other government agencies, and a list of private or community-based organizations that help support people's dementia journey. Our shift is also offering virtual and online program that has increased our ability to provide additional programs to our community. We have trained program and services staff that provide dementia information, support, education throughout the province. Our provincial office is located in Regina, with additional resource centers in Saskatoon and various locations across rural Saskatchewan. In the 2024-2025 fiscal year, we served over 3,300 people from 360 Saskatchewan communities. If you have questions about dementia or need to talk to somebody, call the province-wide toll-free dementia helpline. The phone number is 1-877-949-4141 or email helpline@alzheimers.sk.ca, Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Take a look at our Alzheimer's Society of Saskatchewan website and connect with us through our social media. On the website, you can scroll down to programs and events to see our upcoming event information. On the screen is how to access the past evening of educations that was referenced tonight. Now we'll look at some of our questions and answers, and I will stop sharing my screen. Okay. I have to say that listening to your presentation, because I've helped people, caregivers and people living with dementia for many, many years, and I learned some new things tonight, and it was very informative. I was quite impressed. One question here is, um, what do you happen to know what is the SaskTel setup and monthly fee for the safety neck alarm around the patient's neck in event of a fall?
So I believe the price depends on what other services you utilize from SaskTel. I believe if you're using their emergency response system, you have to have an alarm system through SaskTel as well. You can always contact them for monthly pricing based on your own personal plan. There are a lot of other companies out there that provide that service. Lifeline is a very common one that provides very extensive service here in Saskatchewan, but there are also some non-monitored options becoming available online as well, where you don't have to pay that monthly service fee. And perhaps pressing the button is a direct phone call to your daughter or your son or your loved one who might be able to direct you then or call an ambulance for you if needed, so that you don't necessarily have to pay those monthly monitoring fees. But if you do have loved ones that aren't consistently available by phone or might take a while to respond, it can still be smart to use those services that have that one on one representative that will answer your call when you press that button.
I actually have some questions myself. Like I said when I was going through okay, so the first one that I have is what color do you recommend when you're looking at bath mat and toilet seats in the bathroom? Because one, you mentioned with perception, you don't want something too dark because then it looks like it's a hole, but you do need contrast against the white. Is there a certain color that you guys have experienced that seems to be the nice in between?
I would say for the toilet, for example, as long as there is some contrast, it might depend a little bit on that person's visual acuity as well. If they have other factors impacting their vision, then they might need more or less contrast depending. But even something as simple as making sure the garbage can that's right next to the toilet isn't exactly the same white as the floor and the toilet and the tub, so that there is a little bit of differentiation between surfaces. So perhaps just slightly changing the color of your toilet seat might be enough to just identify where that seat shape is that's recognizable.
Thank you. And also, I thought that was really great suggesting, like, especially more a little bit more complicated devices like the Lifeline, introducing that early on, and so that they get that experience and everything using that. While it's much easier to develop that routine than later on, because I know from clients in the past, when you need to really use it, they they struggle a little. The people living with dementia struggle a little bit getting into that routine, knowing how to, push the button and stuff like that. I have another question. So, because I've kind of looked into this myself, like the using pictures for step-by-step instructions, um, for, doing, day-to-day tasks. Is there suggestions or ideas that you can find online? I know it depends on what generation you're looking at. The young generation, they probably would be able to find clip art and stuff like that. But for some older people who are not as comfortable doing, graphics and stuff, have you noticed in the past that there's something that they can find online to at least, help them to get it started?
What I would actually suggest is finding someone who can perhaps use their cell phone to take pictures of your actual environment so that it looks, let's use making coffee in the morning for an example. It's going to look exactly like your coffee pot and exactly like the brand of coffee that you use and exactly the same scoop measure that you might use to make the coffee, so that there isn't any need for the brain to make that connection between this is the steps that I see in this picture here, but that coffee pot is different and their countertop is blue and everything looks completely different. There's no need to make that connection then. It's very easily identifiable as your own items and your own environment. So perhaps having someone take pictures and then having those pictures printed and stick them up on the wall, or if you have someone in your life who has a bit of tech knowledge, perhaps they can copy and paste those images into just a Word document with those step by step instructions so that it's all on one easy to read piece of paper.
That's an excellent suggestion. Yeah, because sometimes clip art, can be so vague. that it does. Even, for like, it's like, what is that supposed to represent? Um, and everything. The other thing that you mentioned, Margaret, that I thought was an excellent idea, talking about instructions on, day-to-day tasks, how you cue somebody and making sure that if there's a variety of different family members that are helping to make sure that they're all following the same cueing, the same wording. That was like when I heard that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, but it was not something that I've ever thought, of before.
Mm.
Yeah, that was excellent. And I don't think there's any more questions, but yeah, like the one thing that I just wanted to end with is, watching your PowerPoints and your presentation is just how much that adding just a little bit tool or in the home can really increase independence, allow a person to continue to do some of these tasks that they may not be able to do exactly how they did it before, but just with a little bit of help continuing, because we know that that's so important for, just everybody likes to still be productive and have meaning in their life. And, all this definitely helps make that continue. Well, that's all the time that we have tonight. I just want to thank again Erin and Margaret for your presentation today. It was very informative. This is going to be a great resource for a long time to come. Um, it will be posted on our YouTube channel within a few weeks. Um, and everybody will be getting an email after this presentation on other resources and also links to the past Evening of Education YouTube presentations that were referred to tonight. I also want to thank our sponsors, SGI and SaskTel Telcare, and of course, everybody from the Alzheimer's Society that has been working behind the scenes that you haven't seen tonight, but all their help has been really wonderful to make sure that this evening runs nice and smooth. Um, Thanks again for joining us, and I hope everybody has a wonderful evening.